Welcome to the second lecture on 8051 microcontroller programming using assembly language. Okay, on our previous topic when we discussed about the introduction to computing, the lecture was quite very long because introduction to computing has different things you need to know. But for this second lecture on 8051 programming in assembly language, we will be dealing with the 8051 microcontrollers. We'll learn the difference between the 8051 microcontrollers and the microprocessor, and we'll also learn what actually makes up the 8051 microcontroller. So before we start, I would like you to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can stay updated on our next video. Alright, this is the first lecture. Sorry, this is the second lecture, the 8051 microcontroller. Now this is how the microcontroller looks like. As you can see, it has so many peripherals, so many inputs and output ports. It has so many inputs and output ports. As you can see, it has this is the charging, the input for charging. This is I think the ISP. Don't worry, as we go further, you're going to understand how this microcontroller works. Okay, so here are the outlinings. First of all, we are going to learn about the microcontroller and embedded processor. And number 2, overview of the 8051 family. Now, microcontroller and embedded processors. General purpose microcontrollers are devices that contains no RAM, no ROM, no input and output ports, while microcontroller is a device that has CPU, microprocessor, RAM, ROM, inputs and output ports, timer, analog to digital converter, and other peripherals. Now, ADC means analog to what? To digital converter. Now, what is RAM? Random access memory. What is ROM? Random read-only memory. Okay, so this is a little difference between microcontroller and microprocessors. Now, this are where I differentiated them. Now, the microprocessor, you must add RAM, ROM, I/O ports, timers externally to make it functional. What does this mean? It stands on its own. Yeah, microprocessor stands on its own. You have to add all these things to make it function. Okay, but microcontrollers are not like that. Microprocessor, these are the things you must add. It does not have these things internally. Now, it makes a system bulkier and much more expensive. It makes it bulkier and much more expensive, just like your CPU for your computer device. Now here it has the advantage of versatility on the amount of RAM, random access memory, ROM, read-only memory, and input and output ports. Now, why microcontroller? The fixed amount of on-chip ROM, that's the input ROM, RAM, and numbers of input and output ports make them ideal for many applications in which cost and space are critical. It minimizes how expensive it may be in the market, and it's very compatible, a very little device that you can even put in your pocket. I'm going to show you how a microcontroller looks like. Okay, so let's go to the second line, which says in many applications the space it takes, the power it consumes, and the price per unit are much more critical consideration than the computing power. If you really understand what these people are trying to say, they are trying to tell you that microcontrollers are more okay than the microprocessor. Like for me, I prefer the microcontroller to the microprocessor whenever I want to do any project, because you buying the microprocessor, you have to fix all the inputs and output device, you have to fix the RAM outside, and that will take you a lot of coding. So microcontroller is the best for mechatronics and also the best for machine learning and deep learning using the Python programming. We are still going to use microcontroller once we get to that stage. Number of input and output ports. Let's take a look on how a microcontroller looks like, which makes them ROM, the number of input and output ports, which makes them ideal for many applications. Okay, so application of microcontrollers. Now, when they say application of microcontrollers, where are these microcontrollers important in our society? Now, in the military system, microcontroller is very important. As you can see, they use it to build most of these tracking systems, wireless communication systems, automated spy robots, motion security, time bombs, and missile controllers. All these things can be done with the microcontroller. We know the fact that the microcontroller is very small, but it is very, very powerful. Now it can be used in our homes for is listed here: appliances, automation, intercom, telephones, and etc. In our office, microcontrollers can be used to build telephones, computers, security systems, fax machine, microwaves, copier, laser printers, color printers, and paging. Microcontroller is very versatile, it's very vast, and it's a very important tool that can build anything. It plays a very nice role in terms of technology. Now in auto, what do we mean by auto? Anything that has to do with automated systems can be used to set a particular time a computer is to be on or is to be off. This is it, chip computer. It can be used as an engine control. Most of these electric cars that are manufactured now, they make use of microcontrollers to control the engines and all that. The airbags, ABS, instrumentation, security system, transmission control, entertainment, climate control, cellular phones, and keyless entries. Microcontroller can do all of these tasks, especially the 8051 microcontroller. So if you have a project and you are given any of these projects to do as a school project, you can just take the 8051 microcontroller and do the job by programming it, as simple as that. The criteria for choosing a microcontroller. Now, when choosing a microcontroller for your project, here are the major things to check. First of all, you have to check the speed. The speed at which the 8051 runs is very, very okay. Yeah, 8051 has good speed, very well. Now, you have to check the packaging. You have to check the power consumption. Now, for the packaging, 8051 can be packaged any how you want it, because it is not like the Arduino microcontroller where it is fixed. No, you can manipulate the 8051 because 8051 comes in 20 pins, comes in 40 pins, 60 pins, and 100 pins, so you can manipulate it anyhow you want. Now, for the power consumption, 8051 microcontroller consumes less power of about 5 volts, so it takes in less amount of electricity. Now, the amount of RAM and ROM on the chip, the 8051 number of RAM and ROM is very okay for one to understand, and it's very okay for one to use in mechatronics engineering. Now, the number of input and output ports and the timer on chip, 8051 has a very high input and output ports, about 40 pins each. So, the timer on the chip is very, very okay to understand. Now, how to upgrade to higher performance or lower consumption of versions. Now, you can easily upgrade to higher performance of this microcontroller by using the latest version of the microcontroller to build your project. Now, your project performance can be okay if you have a very nice layout of printed circuit board, which is the PCB. And if your PCB is okay, you can actually upgrade your systems and increase the performance of your system and also lower the power consumption. Now, lowering the power consumption will require you building maybe an uninterrupted power supply for your 8051 microcontroller projects. Now, cost per unit and easy to understand. 8051 programming in assembly language is very easy to understand, and the cost per unit is less expensive, unlike the Arduino microcontroller. The 8051 microcontroller is sold for 500 naira, and in Nigeria it is sold for 500 naira. And when your inputs when you want to input using the little device like a resistor and all that, in fact, building a microcontroller board will not cost you more than 1,000 naira. So buying an Arduino board will cost you about 4,000 to 5,000. So you can see the difference. It has a very huge difference. Now, the 8051 microcontroller family is equipped with the features listed above. Let's take an overview of the 8051 family. The Intel company introduced 8051, which is referred to as the MCS51, in 1981. The microcontroller S51 is an 8-bit processor. After the nationwide production of MCS51, the Atmel company took over and started producing the MCS51 and MC51 series. Now, the MC51 series and the MCS51 series comprises of both 889S51, 889S52, 889S51, and 889C52. Alright, so as you can see, these names are quite confusing, but as you move further, you are going to understand the series of this microcontroller. Though they are not the same, because the S series are recently produced and they have more functions than the C series. It's time when we get to the input and output device interface, you get to understand the functions of this S series and C series. You will see that the S series has more function than the C series. Now, they all have different memory space. In mechatronics engineering, you won't be needing too much memory space for all mechatronics projects. So you can use any 8051 family of your choice for any project. Okay, so normally the 8051 families have 228 bytes of RAM, random access memory, and above 44 kilobytes of on-chip ROM and above. 2 timers, 1 serial port, 4 input and output ports, 8 bits each. These 4 input and output ports is 8 bits wide. Each of them are 8 bits wide. Don't forget, it has 6 interrupt source. So you will get to understand what this interrupt source means in the upcoming lectures. Now you will understand these structures as we move further. Okay, the 8051 became widely popular after allowing other manufacturers to make the market You will understand this structure as we study further. The 8051 became widely popular after allowing other manufacturers to make and market any flavor of 8051 microcontroller, but remaining code compatible. All 8051 flavors in the market are all code compatible. They can all be programmed, but they are of different series. Now, the internal structure of the 8051 microcontroller. This is the internal structure of the 8051 microcontroller. Now, as you can see, the internal interrupt is feeding the CPU, and the oscillator is also feeding the CPU, the central processing unit. This will tell you that the central processing unit is inside of the 8051 microcontroller, but in the microprocessor, it is not. It is outside. You have to fix it. Now, the on-chip ROM read-only memory is feeding the interrupt control. You will understand what this interrupt means as we dive further. Now, this is the control bus. In our last lecture, we talked about control bus and what it actually means, the meaning of control bus control. Sorry. Now, the bus control is where the transmission of data and address have been taken from. Now we have the input and output ports, which are 4 in numbers: port 0, port 1, port 2, port 3. Now, the on-chip RAM is feeding these ports. Okay, now remember the on-chip RAM, we talked about it. It is the random access memory. It is temporarily recognized by the 8051 microcontroller. Any information you store there is temporary there. Okay, it can be deleted and it can be removed. Now the timer 0 and timer 1, which is the 2 timers of the 8051, is feeding the serial port. Now the serial port is where communication flows through. You want to transmit some ASCII code, like a series of alphabets and letters and numbers. You can use these 2 pins. One is the receive, one is the transmit. Let's say you want to interface a Bluetooth module. This is where you will use the transmit and the receive. TX stands for transmit, while the RX stands for receive. You can receive serial data, and you can also transmit serial data with the 8051 microcontroller. Okay, so this is the end of the 8051 microcontroller lecture for today. Okay, I want to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you'll get updated on the next lecture that is going to come out. Okay, I know this lecture seems easier, but I will tell you that other ones will not be as easy as this. Okay, so you just have to equip yourself and be determined to study this. And by the grace of God, we are going to dive further to machine learning, which is the deep learning part in artificial intelligence using Python. That is when we are done with the mechatronics section of this academy. Okay, so thank you for watching this lecture on 8051 microcontroller programming. In our next lecture, which is the lecture 3 of the 8051 microcontroller programming in assembly language, we'll be talking about the 8051 assembly language programming. There you will now know how to program the 8051 from scratch. Okay, so you can be able to build any of your projects using 8051 microcontroller. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay updated for more videos.